So let's get started. Are you ready, Carter? You're ready?
I know I had a calculator. I think I need to know I have a question.
Why is what? I don't know. All right.
So JP.
So number 1 says,
Wait.
how can the following quadratic equation be, if you sharpen that right now, I'm going to literally choke you. No, you can just switch me.
What's up, JP?
Get ready ahead of time. Okay, so how can the following quadratic equation, Natalia, Alexa, but I'm already talking, we're recording, let's go. I need everybody to do what they know that they're supposed to be doing right now. Carter, that's not talking, unless you're answering one of my questions. So how can the following quadratic equation be solved in one step? Yes. Not square it. We are square root each side. Or both sides. Number 2. Solve the quadratic equation below by the square root method. So when we look at this first one, is it in the form that it needs to be in for us to go ahead and square root each side? Yes. Yes, and we know that it is because x squared is by itself, Jaden. So we're going to take the square root of each side. So that gives us x equals plus minus, what's the square root of 144? 12. So that means my solutions are negative 12, positive 12. What are these called again? Set notation. Okay, number 3. Is this in the form it needs to be in for us to go ahead and square root each side? Yes, we need to divide it. What are we dividing by? 64. Now, can I divide 49 by 64 and get a whole number? No, so I'm going to leave it as x squared equals 49 over 64. Now what? Now what? It's supposed to be 49. I messed up. So square root each side. Carter, come sit over here. I can't take it anymore. All I can hear is you talking like in the background. So then I have x equals plus minus. What's the square root of 49?
I don't know.
7. What's the square root of 64? What's the square root of 64? 8. So my two solutions are negative 7 over 8 and positive 7 over 8. Who's stupid? Okay, are we ready for number 4? Okay. Okay, so which of the following is equivalent to 20x squared minus 7 equals 33? So again, we want to use the square root method. So what is the first thing we're going to do so that we can use the square root method? We're going to add 7 to both sides.
Why? Oh, yeah, that's...
Okay. So 20x squared equals, and 33 plus 7 is 40. Now we're not quite set up yet to do the square root method, so what do we do now?
Divide.
Divide by what? 20. Oh, 20. For some reason I thought you said 5. So then we have x squared equals 40 divided by 20 is 2. Now we can square root each side. So we're going to get x equals plus minus. Is 2 a perfect number? No, so we're going to leave it as the square root of 2.
Wait, what happens to the x minus 2 part?
We never subtracted 2.
So shouldn't it be x plus 2 parentheses? Or you just give it?
We didn't have it set up like as a factor. It wasn't set up like that. This one was just the x squared. So there won't be anything at the end that we're adding or subtracting. Okay, so which one's my answer? D. Don't be like Jaden and choose A, because you will get it wrong. Okay, number 5 and number 6, we're going to solve the quadratic equations below by the square root method. So what do we do first? What do we do first?
I don't know how to do that actually.
So this is this, like, we're going to treat x plus 3 squared just like x squared. Our what we need to do is get that by itself so that we can use the square root method. So how would we get the x plus 3 squared by itself?
Do you divide the 2 on each side?
Yes, we're going to divide both sides by 2. So then we have x plus 3 squared equals, and 128 divided by 2 is 64. Now, see how this one is, Carter? See how this is x plus 3 squared inside the parentheses? See how that's different than just the x squared up here? Okay, so this is where it's going to be that last little step where we add or subtract.
So then 2 is on the outside, like for any of them, we do that for all of them?
This exponent?
No, the 2 over there.
Over here, yeah, you're going to divide. You'll divide
Whatever
first.
number it is.
Yeah. Okay, so what do I do next? We're going to square root each side. So we're going to get x plus 3 equals plus minus, and the square root of 64 is 8. Now what?
I get stuck right there. Like every time.
Okay, so look right here. Is x by itself? Is it by itself? It's got a plus 3 with it, right? So that means I have not solved for x yet. So in order for me to solve for x to get x by itself, I have to do something with this plus 3.
You gotta subtract.
Subtract 3. I'm always going to do the opposite.
Do you have to do that?
Yep. So I have x equals negative 3 plus 8, and x equals negative 3 minus 8. So what's negative 3 plus 8?
5.
5. And what's negative 3 minus 8?
Negative 11.
Negative 11. Okay, we ready for number 6? So we have x plus 10 squared equals 16. What do we need to do here? We still want to use the square root method.
Square root.
We can go ahead and square root it because that x plus 10 squared is by itself.
Renegade.
So square root each side. So we have x plus 10 equals plus minus what? What's the square root of 16? 4. Okay, Carter, is x by itself?
No.
So what do I need to do to get it by itself?
Subtract 10.
I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides. So I have x equals, I'm going to have negative 10 plus 4, and then x equals negative 10 minus 4. So my two solutions are what? What's negative 10 plus 4?
6.
But it is, yeah, negative 6. And then what's negative 10 minus 4? Negative 14. Okay, number 7. This one we're also supposed to use our square root method. So we have x minus 6 squared plus 8 that equals 12. What do I do with this plus 8 before I take the square root of each side? I'm going to subtract 8 from both sides. So then I'm going to have x minus 6 squared equals, and 12 minus 8 is 4. Now what do we do? We're going to square root both sides. So I have x minus 6 equals plus minus, what's the square root of 4? 2. And then to solve for x,
Add 6.
we are going to add 6 to both sides.
X plus 6.
Yeah, so x equals 6 plus 2, and x equals 6 minus 2. So what do we have when we have 6 plus 2? 8, and then what do we have when we say 6 minus 2? 4.
4. And then 8.
What do we say? 8 and 4, that's correct. X equals 8, 4. Okay. Ready to move on? Any questions so far? What were you doing this whole time? Oh.
Is that not negative 8?
No, it's not negative because you said 6 plus 2. Okay, so we need to find the solutions for the indicated variable. So for number 8, we have b equals 7c squared, and I'm solving for, right here, c. That's what I know you meant c. Okay, so I need to get c squared by itself, so what would I do?
Divide.
I would divide. I'm going to divide both sides by 7. Do I know what b is?
No.
I do not know what it is, so I'm just going to leave it as b divided by 7. It's still going to stay underneath that b, right? It's not going anywhere. Equals c squared. And then how would I solve for c? I'm going to square root each side. So I'm going to get plus minus the square root of b over 7 equals what? C.
Was that just showing us how to do it? Or like
This is exactly how you would do it. Wait till I'm done. It's going to be just like that on the test, but probably different variables.
So like it's gonna be like no numbers.
There might be a number in it.
It's going to have at least one number, but it's going to have like a letter.
Yeah, it'll have 2 letters. Okay, for number 9, I'm solving for x. So I got to get x by itself. So what do I do with this 11?
Divided.
I divide both sides by 11. So now we have x squared equals r divided by 11. We have to keep it like that because we don't know what r is. Now what? We are going to square root each side. So we're going to have x equals plus minus the square root of r divided by 11. Okay, ready to go on to number 10? Number 10 says, given x squared minus 14x plus c, what should the value of c be in order for the trinomial to be a perfect square? So this is where we have to create that new c, right? So remember, our c, whenever we're creating a c for a perfect square trinomial, c is going to equal b divided by 2 squared. So what is my b here? It's actually negative 14. So negative 14 equals negative 7. And then what are we going to do with negative 7? We're going to square it. What's negative 7 times negative 7? 49. And that would be our c value. Bless you. B over 2. B divided by 2 squared. Does it really look like a 6?
No, I can't see.
Oh yeah, you're blind.
That question was hard.
That's one of the easier questions. Don't miss it.
It's so different.
Okay, ready to flip it over? Oh, sorry. You got it? I'll let you use my paper. Okay, so for number 11 through 12, complete the square to write an equivalent equation. So this means that we're just going to get it to where it's in that factored form before we would actually square root each side. Got it? Everybody understand? Does everybody understand? If I show you, will you understand? We're not going to actually solve for it. We're just going to get it to where we write it as factors. We're going to create the perfect square trinomial, set it up in that factored form. Jacob, can you wake up our friend back there? You got your paper? Why? It's right here. Do this with us so that you know what to do tomorrow for the test. Huh? Well, it won't hurt you to review with us. Everybody's reviewing. Okay. Anyway, so this is what, first we don't have our C is isolated. We don't have a GCF, right? So now we're going to create our new C. How do we create our new C?
Divided by 2.
Okay, so that means we have 8 divided by 2, that equals 4. Then we're going to take 4 and square it. So that equals 16. This is squaring it. This is not square rooting it, just so y'all know. Okay, so now we're going to write it with our new c in there. So we have x squared plus 8x plus what? 16 equals 4 plus what?
Aubrey looks so small.
16. What's up? I can't do it right now. I'm in the middle of a review. You have to wait till I'm done. What class are you in? Okay, I'll try to bring it to you. Okay, so now, what are my factors of this x squared plus 8x plus 16? Do I use this 16? Do I use this 4? Do I use 8 to write those factors? The 4. So we have x plus 4, what?
X squared.
Plus x plus 4 squared, and that equals what? What does it equal? 20.
Dang it, I was trying to get there, but I wasn't that close.
That would be our final answer, because all we had to do was write an equivalent equation. We are not solving. All right, number 12. Okay, so we first have to do what?
Minus 30.
Minus 30, so we can isolate the c. So let's subtract 30 from both sides. That gives us x squared plus 20x equals negative 30. Now what? Right, we're going to take our b, which is 20, divide it by 2, that equals 10. And then we're going to take 10 and square it, which gives us 100. So we're adding what on both sides? 100. So that would be x squared,
X squared
plus
plus 20
x
x plus 100
equals
minus 30
negative 30
100.
plus 100.
That's what I said minus.
So now we're going to write our
Everybody shout.
100. So now we're going to write our factors. What are our factors for x squared plus 20x plus 100? Very good. X plus 10 squared, and that equals, what's negative 30 plus 100? 70.
30 plus 170.
And that would be our equivalent equation.
Coach Gard, my mom fractured her wrist and shit.
I'm very sorry to hear that. Okay. So number 13 says, where did the mistake happen below? So when we're looking at this equation right here, the first thing that they would need to do is what? Add 8 to both sides. So I don't have an 8 over here, and would 32 plus 8 be 40? Yes, so this step is correct, right? So next they're telling us they have to find what? They have to find the c value. So this is where they would take negative 6 divided by 2, which would give them negative 3. Then they would take negative 3 and they would square it, which equals 9. So here they're showing they added what to each side? Is that correct? Yes. Okay. Then down here, step 4, they're writing their perfect square trinomial as its factors. They have x plus 3, but based on what we got when we divided b by 2, it should be minus 3. So which step is wrong?
Step 4.
Step 4. So then number 14 says, what are the correct solutions to number 13? So we're not going to use x plus 3 squared. We're going to use what? Very good. X minus 3 squared equals 49. So now, can we go ahead and take the square root of both sides and solve it? Yes. So let's do that. So that's going to give us x minus 3 equals plus minus, what's the square root of 49? It is 7. Now what? Add 3 to both sides. So we're going to have x equals 3 plus 7, x equals 3 minus 7. What's 3 plus 7? 10. What's 3 minus 7? Negative 4.
I'm not confident about this test.
I don't understand what you just
I
said.
don't think I'm gonna pass.
That's really sad. Number 15. Which of the following is equivalent to x squared minus 10x equals negative 4? What are all these in? What form are they in? What do we call these right here?
I don't know.
Starts with an F. Factored. So we want to get it in we have to create a perfect square trinomial and get it in factored form. So the first thing we're going to do is what? What am I doing with this negative 10? We're going to divide it. So we would have negative 10 divided by 2. That would give me negative 5. So that means my factors would have to be what? X minus 5 squared. What two can I eliminate? C and D. Why can I eliminate A?
Because it's not supposed to be negative.
It's not going to be negative 4. You're exactly right.
Some of like some other numbers.
Because I'm going to take that negative 5 and square it, right? And add it to both sides. I'm going to add 25 to both sides. So that's why I would not have negative 4. So my final answer would be B. Okay. 16 and 17. We have to solve by completing the square. This is where we're going to go through all the steps. So first step is to isolate the C. Is my C isolated? How do I do that? I'm going to minus 7. This is where you really got to pay attention, Carter, so that tomorrow you do know what you're doing and you don't fail it, because there's no time to make this test up. So we have x squared plus 4x equals 10. Now what? We have to create our C. We're going to take 4, divide it by 2, that equals 2. Now we're going to take 2 and square it, that equals 4. So now we have x squared plus 4x plus what? 4 equals 10 plus what? 4. Now what? Write our factors. So we're using what? The 4 or the 2? The 2. So we have x plus 2 squared equals 14. 10 plus 4 gives me 14. And then the final thing that we got to do is square root and solve. So when I take the square root of each side, I have x plus 2 equals plus minus. Is 14 a perfect number? No, so we'll leave it as a square root of 14. And then to solve for x, all we need to do is what? Subtract 2 from both sides. So our solutions would be x equals negative 2 plus minus square root of 14. Very good. Okay, 17. Same thing. We got to go through all of our steps. Is our C isolated? Nope. So we got to what? Add 20 to both sides. So that gives us x squared minus 8x equals 20. Do I have a GCF? I forgot to ask you that on the last one. I do not, so I can go right to creating the C value. We know that we don't have a GCF because there's not a number in front of the x squared, right? We know that's got to be 1. So what am I taking and dividing by 2? Negative 8 divided by 2 gives me negative 4. Now I'm going to take negative 4 and square it and get 16. So now I'm going to add that 16 into both sides. So I would have x squared minus 8x plus what? 16 equals 20 plus what? 16. Okay, so now we're going to write what am I writing? The factors. You were going to say that? No. So what am I using? 16, -4, -8? What do I use? The -4. So x minus 4 squared equals 20 plus 16, which gives me 36. Now we are going to what? Well, tell me what that something is, Jaden. We're going to square root each side and solve for x. So now we have x minus 4 equals plus minus, what's the square root of 36? 6.
Finish.
And then to solve for x, we just have to,
Subtract 4.
not subtract,
Add 4.
add 4 since it's being already subtracted. So that gives us x equals 4 plus 6, x equals 4 minus 6. So what is 4 plus 6?
10.
That is 10. What's 4 minus 6? -2. Those are my solutions. Me too. Okay, last part. These should be easy questions. 18 says the graph on the left represents the height of a baseball thrown t seconds in the air.
Are we doing this still?
How long was the baseball in the air? Very good, right here. 6 seconds.
You got.
Last question. Using the same graph, after how many seconds is the ball at a height of 25 meters?
About 1.3 and
So
4.8.
here we are. What are those? What are you saying? 1 point what?
3.
Okay, we'll go with it. 1.3 and
4.8.
4.8 seconds.
4.825. To be exact.
And we're finished.
I think I know how to do my assessment now.